Now, good morning. So I was talking on mute. It's always good. Good way to start the podcast. Good way to get things going. For those of you that are in the comment section freaking out, it's okay. We are back. We're back on audio. So hopefully you guys can hear me. And it sounds like I got a confirmation from some of the viewers that we are up and running. So today's topic is an interesting one, that's for sure. I wanted to talk a little bit about what VR looks like in the future, what consumerism looks like, and how does it affect capitalism. Does it swing in capitalism 2.0? Is that the future that we're looking at, or is it something completely different that we haven't ideated yet? And let's look at it from a couple different perspectives. But before we get too deep into that, who am I? You may have never talked to me before. You may be the first time viewer or listener to the Tech Talk today. My name is Rob Petrosino. I am a futurist technologist, all-around great guy. And my role here is to educate you on emerging technology and trends, make you feel comfortable, interested, and ultimately feel like you can talk about emerging technology in the future. So with that, we don't have a screen share today. It's just me and you talking about this topic. So interactive chat, throw your comments in any of the platforms. I can see those pull up. If you have a question, comment, idea, thought, opinion, make sure you drop it in one of the channels. Shoot me a message. Make sure you check out the socials as always. But let's dive a little bit into this concept of consumption and consumerism and how that potentially could be impacted by VR. So the interesting thing about virtual reality is that it sits on the fence post where it could go in either one of two directions. And I'm going to use VR a lot, but I'm also going to talk about XR, extended reality, and a little bit about augmented reality and how those kind of change things around, and what that might be for the future. I'm going to pause real quick. And we are back. All right. So, quick pause. Sorry about that. Had to make sure that the blinds weren't open. Otherwise, my lovely dog was going to bark. But when we're thinking about consumerism and spatial computing and how this all puts together, we have to look at it from a couple different perspectives. We can look at it from a futurist perspective, right? We can look at it from an economist perspective, but we can also look at it from the philosophical perspective. And there's a couple different ideas here that are going to blend into each other to a bit. But let's call VR, AR, XR underneath the umbrella of spatial computing. Spatial computing is the ability to either transport or transform the world around you, transport yourself to a new world, transform the world around you, but also has an underlying economy. This is very similar to the idea of metaverse, right? In a metaverse setting, you have one of those three options. I can have a metaverse that lives on top of the real world, or I can have a metaverse that is totally separate from that. With that, there's a very interesting economy that happens related to it. Now, consumerism within this extended metaverse virtual reality world is going to be present because as a founding principle you want to be able to transact with this digital space, and there's an underlying idea of the creator economy. In a true Web3 metaverse experience, you have the creator economy where creators of different content own that content and then can deploy it to various metaverses in a multiverse way, or to individual locations or users. So those creators, because they own it and it exists in a Web3 blockchain style experience, right? It is supporting technology there. They own this content. Because they own it, it means that they can purchase it as well as drive revenue and funds for it. So with that creator economy established, with this spatial computing aspect of the world that's coming true, you're going to see a massive growth of innovation. Just like we're seeing right now with generative AI, as these platforms become more consistent and available, we're going to see a growth of innovation, how people use that potential creator economy to drive revenue. Now, what's interesting is it's also going to drive digital materialism. New term, materialistic, someone who owns or seeks out the next and latest greatest thing, someone who prides themselves on their worldly possessions. Materialism. There's going to be a new digital materialism where users are going to be actually focused on purchasing digital objects, digital houses, digital clothing, etc., because they have all these digital aspects of their life now in this metaverse or VR experience. They're going to want or crave or desire new aspects to add to that world. Now, ideally, this comes from the creator economy, where different creators actually can build and sell their items in that space, but it'll also come from brands. We're seeing an overwhelming and predominant amount of the brands be in this metaverse / VR world because they have the funding to build their own spaces. Spotify, Wendy's, etc. Whether it's Roblox, the mall, there's a slew of different ones that actually are available for brands to go and experience. Now, we can also see a shift away from this consumerism into anti-materialism. So potentially, from the philosophical perspective, if I live in a digital world, I may not want or need or desire to add items to my space. I don't need to have more digital things because they are actually not manifesting themselves in the quote-unquote real world. But this leads to the idea, is VR good or bad? Just like are people good or bad? From the philosophical perspective, you can go and battle that back and forth. Innately, are they good? Innately, are they bad? With that, we then have to look at the technology in itself. It is neither good nor bad, but those that use it will have good or bad purposes. So, how do we enable VR to create virtual environments that promote sustainability or ethical values or anti-materialism and still have a rendered experience that is acceptable and deemed accessible by the users to have a unifying experience? So, what this is all boiling down to is within a metaverse style experience, can you have public spaces that are accessible and desirable for those that have real world large amounts of capital in their bank account and those that do not, or those that are choosing an anti-materialistic process to this digital space? So really, we can use VR as individuals and as brands to promote consumerism and capitalism and contribute to this digital materialism, capitalism 2.0, if you will, in a completely digital space. Or we can pivot and have something that is more sustainable and ethical and holds value, where users don't actually have to purchase different items in this space, but can have communal spaces that are shared experiences, and thus reducing the likelihood of the creator economy. Now, from a futuristic perspective, we're a futurist, my role is to think about what is most likely to happen, right? From the economist perspective and the philosopher perspective, and somewhere in between the two. it's difficult to predict what will happen, but I believe that there will be both anti-digital materialists, people that don't want to be tied to digital objects, much like that of the digital, the nomads of today, the digital nomads who are working from remote places and maybe are renting or having, RVs and traveling around. There will also most likely be a high rate of adoption of this technology, which primes itself for brands and large organizations to carve out new revenue streams, which leans more towards the consumerism or digital capitalism 2.0. But I believe that regardless of either direction that we head towards, it's going to really reshape how we think of possessions and what possessions mean for us as individuals. And us as individuals, it really is defined as people that are going and having metaverse, VR, XR style experiences. Just like there's ad blocker now, just like there's a slew of different tools for you to streamline your internet experience, we will have very similar pieces of technology that enables these type of experiences. However, we're going to see a drastic change in social norms and cultural adoptions within the metaverse related to these digital goods. And the digital goods can be used again in two different types, right? This creator economy or brand economy, but also related to how we as humans interact within those spaces. So it is yet to be seen whether we will be firmly entrenched in one camp or the other. But what we can say is that there will be a drastic change in how people interact with their digital spaces. The technology will enable one or the other or both. We will either see a massive push for a creator-based economy that's based in Web3 and blockchain for individual artists and designers and creators to have refuge in those items that they create and receive funds for them. Or we will see a much larger brand impact with monolithic metaverses where they're owned solely by an individual organization. I think from the future's perspective, we will see the brands come up until the technology that we need for the true creator economy to exist. But it is going to change how we interact on the daily with others, with virtual worlds, and with the real world around us. So I don't think it's going to be a wholesale shift in the next 3 years to a fully virtual world where everyone has a headset on. But in 3 months from now, we're going to review the technology that's out there and see what the hype cycle and curve looks like. But can we guarantee that people will be anti-materialistic? Absolutely not. Can we guarantee that we can, shift away from consumerism or digital consumerism or capitalism 2.0 in these virtual spaces? Absolutely not. But what we can say is that if we're aware and understand what's happening in the space, we can at least be present and talk about it. Just like yesterday when we talked about AI and the variations of the different rules, standings, legal letters, and how countries are taking this on, we will have to do the same thing in some of these metaverse style experiences / XR style experiences and AR experiences when the adoption curve skyrockets. So that's today. The number one point here is that adoption and technology will drive the curve of capitalism 2.0 and what that looks like, and most importantly, how we see the future when it comes to consumerism and capitalism in this new space. So I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming in. I look forward to chatting with you all again very, very soon. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Want to know what you guys think. With that, I'll see you guys on the other side.